As I scanned the restaurant, searching for the client I was supposed to meet, I spotted my ex-wife Susan. She sat beside a slightly overweight, middle-aged man, once clearly fit but now showing the signs of indulgence over time. Susan appeared to bask in his company, and it was evident that he exuded wealth. Standing in the foyer, memories of my past with Susan rushed back, despite the 3 years since our divorce. Emotions resurfaced as if it were yesterday, leading me to my current position, observing from outside rather than being seated beside her. It seemed Susan had gotten her wish, as events would soon reveal. My troubles began on a trip to Albany for a customer meeting, intending to stay overnight to avoid the lengthy drive back. An hour into the journey, my client called, explaining he had a minor accident but was unharmed. With the meeting canceled, I opted to return home for a surprise romantic dinner with my wife. After an hour and a half, I finally approached my street, noticing 3 unfamiliar cars in the driveway. Susan often hosted gatherings with her friends while I was away, so I didn't think much of it. Parking on the street, I entered the house, initially unfazed. However, my unease grew upon seeing scattered clothes in the living room. A sudden scream from upstairs shattered any semblance of normalcy. It wasn't a cry for help but a familiar, passionate moan that pierced through me, indicating something entirely different. My heart sank as the realization hit me: Susan was being intimate with someone else. Despite my reluctance, I ascended the stairs, compelled to confront the truth. Peeking into our bedroom, I witnessed a scene that confirmed my worst fears. Susan engaged in sexual acts with strangers, while her boss Jeff Davis joined in, his actions shedding light on his true character, confirming my long-held suspicions. "Hey Sue, you're quite the star, huh? Loving every moment, I see. And thanks for entertaining my clients. They can't get enough of you, it seems," Jeff boasted, casually acknowledging my wife's involvement in his business dealings. It sickened me to hear him treat her as a commodity. The trio continued their debauchery, treating Sue as nothing more than a plaything. The demeaning remarks fueled her wild behavior, a stark departure from her demeanor throughout our entire marriage. Jeff's choice of words, labeling her a whore, felt particularly fitting, emphasizing the depths to which she had sunk under his influence. Slipping away unnoticed, I retreated downstairs to my study, seeking solace in the familiarity of my surroundings. Finding my digital camera, I decided to capture evidence of Sue's infidelity, if only for my lawyer's benefit. Standing outside the bedroom door, I quietly recorded snippets of their actions, capturing their faces and deeds. While some might find such a scenario arousing, it left me feeling despondent and betrayed. My wife's degradation at the hands of other men crushed me, draining any semblance of arousal or excitement. Needing to clear my head, I retrieved my pistol from the safe, preparing for any potential confrontation. As I contemplated my next move, a plan formed in my mind. Seizing the opportunity, I collected the men's belongings from the living room, including car keys and wallets, and sabotaged their vehicles outside. With a twisted grin, I anticipated the chaos that would ensue once they discovered their predicament. Taking a deep breath, I positioned myself behind the stairway and called Sue's cell phone, hoping to catch her off guard. Despite her initial avoidance, I persisted, feigning normalcy as I proposed dinner plans upon my imminent return. Inside, fury simmered beneath my calm facade, fueled by the betrayal unfolding before me. "Coming home already?" she asked, her voice fraught with nerves. "That sounds wonderful. I just need to get ready, baby. See you then." Her words rushed out in a blur, and she hung up before I could respond. I chuckled to myself, knowing exactly what would unfold in just a minute. True to form, 4 naked figures cascaded down the stairs into the living room. Hastily dressing, the men scrambled to put on their clothes while Sue smoothed out her own attire. With a quick push, she ushered them out, tossing shoes and a jacket after them. Peering anxiously outside, she hoped they'd vanish before I hit the street. If she hadn't been so flustered, she might have noticed my car parked right in front of our house. As the men clamored on the porch, Sue ventured out to hear their protests. Seizing the moment, I shut and locked the door behind her, catching her gaze before she was shut out. Desperation tinged her voice as she pleaded through the window, but the time for words had passed. The men pounded on the door, demanding their belongings, but I dialed 911, reporting an attempted break-in. Moments later, police arrived, responding to my call and a neighbor's report. Stepping outside, I informed them of the situation. These men were assaulting my wife, and I want them arrested, I declared, inciting a flurry of denials from the accused. Sue, avoiding eye contact, confessed to inviting them willingly, diffusing the tension. With little legal recourse, the officers suggested counseling and took everyone's information for their report. I instructed the police to arrange a cab for Sue, barring her from the premises for the night. Despite accusations of theft, I maintained my innocence, returning to the porch as the cab approached. Sue lingered with the men until their departure, leaving behind a scene of shattered trust and bitter realization. Standing on the porch, I glared at my wife. Despite her courage in attempting to approach me, if she had known the extent of my anger or that I had my gun, she might have fled in the opposite direction. "Bobby, I am so sorry for..." she began, but I cut her off abruptly. "You broke my heart, and I will never forgive you. Jeff's name for you was Whore, and I think it fits. From now on, I will call you Whore and never use your real name again. If you ever need to talk to me again, do it through Tad." With that final remark, I retreated into the house, leaving her stranded on the porch. She rushed back to the group in tears, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction when she pushed Jeff away. However, any semblance of contentment dissipated when I returned to our bedroom. The air was heavy with the scent of sex, and my pillow was stained with cum. This sight triggered something inside me, and I began to tear the room apart in a fit of rage. Dragging the mattress onto the front lawn, I fetched my toolbox from the garage. Piece by piece, I dismantled the bed and hurled it onto the lawn. Returning to the bedroom, I snatched Sue's cell phone from the floor and sifted through her contacts and messages. As expected, I found lewd emails, explicit pictures, and even videos featuring unknown men engaging in various sexual acts with her. Next, I gathered her clothes into trash bags, a futile attempt at consideration that felt hollow and meaningless. Dumping every drawer's contents onto the lawn, I proceeded to do the same with her belongings in the guest room. It was there that I stumbled upon a startling discovery. One of the guest room drawers refused to open fully, so I forced it with all my pent-up frustration. Beneath it lay several DVD discs, one of which I had inadvertently cracked. Despite my sinking heart, I carried the discs downstairs and inserted each one into the player, bracing myself for what I would find. The first disc depicted Sue and her supposed best friend, Sarah, engaging in explicit activities with multiple partners at Sarah's house, activities that had supposedly occurred during Sue's regular visits to assist with Avon parties. The sight brought me to tears, but my anguish intensified as I reached the last two discs. The first disc revealed Sue engaging in sexual activities with her tennis instructor, activities that occurred during the lessons I had been paying for. Every Saturday, she would return home too exhausted for intimacy, leaving me to wonder why. The second disc depicted Sue being intimate with Jeff, her boss, and Bill Evans, Jeff's superior, on the boardroom table at her workplace. Bill, a prominent figure in the community, was renowned for his charitable endeavors, and now I watched as he indulged in my wife's company. Gathering the incriminating evidence, I placed the cell phone, discs, and the tape I had recorded earlier into a large envelope. My intention was to hand the envelope over to my lawyer and best friend, Tadworth. Our friendship had stood the test of time, and he was one of the few people I truly trusted. Glancing over at Sue's computer, I powered it on and proceeded to make copies of every file, email, photo, and video stored on it. It took an hour to complete the task, after which I began to sift through her digital life. The videos mirrored the content of the discs I had found earlier, showcasing Sue's extramarital affairs. Additionally, I stumbled upon explicit photos that wouldn't be out of place on adult websites. Delving into her emails, I discovered correspondence between Sue and various men, as well as exchanges with her friend Sarah. One email, in particular, struck a nerve. In it, Sarah inquired why Sue hadn't ended her marriage to pursue single life again. Sue's response painted a damning picture of her intentions and feelings towards me. She expressed doubts about my intelligence and physical appearance, lamenting my recent weight gain and dislike of my facial hair. Sue also hinted at her infidelity, mentioning her excitement over recent sexual encounters with other men, including co-workers Jeff and Bill. She outlined her plans to secure financial benefits from our divorce, including the house, car, and potential alimony. Reading her callous words stung deeply, but I resolved to remain strong. Despite the betrayal, I knew I couldn't let her actions break me. When it came to my ideal partner, I wanted someone wealthy, devoted, easily influenced, and not too bright. He'd have to cater to my every whim and still ask which cheek to kiss, in jest of course. I wasn't too concerned about his performance in the bedroom, as long as he wasn't lacking in that department. I could always find what I needed elsewhere. It all seemed almost too simple at times. Damn, Bobby's home right now, gotta run. See you Tuesday, call me. Sue, BFF. I read the note over and over, each word cutting deeper than the last. The terms gross in past few years stung more than anything. Was this how she truly felt about me? Had I been so blinded by love that I didn't see her infidelity over the past 2 years? I drifted off to sleep shortly after, finding solace on the couch. The next morning, I woke up early and called in sick to work. Sleep had evaded me, leaving me restless and tormented. After notifying work, I reached out to my best friend and lawyer, Tad Worth. Mary, Tad's secretary, answered the phone, a familiar voice I'd known almost as long as Tad himself. I requested an urgent meeting, instructing her to mention the name Tammy Brown if Tad gave her any trouble. With that, I hung up before she could respond. As I dressed, my phone rang. I hesitated, not wanting to speak to Sue, but answered anyway, only to find an unfamiliar number on the display. It turned out to be Bill Evans from Susan's workplace, expressing a desire to discuss the events of the previous night at my house. He suggested meeting at his office to resolve matters amicably. I couldn't be certain if he knew about the incriminating video of him with my wife at their workplace, but I understood his concerns regarding Jeff Davis's important clients and the value of both my wife and Jeff to his business. Negative publicity was undoubtedly a worry for him. Mr. Evans, I have a prior commitment this morning, but I assure you I'll call back before noon to arrange a meeting later today, I replied calmly, masking my true intentions. As I left the house, the remnants of what looked like a bizarre yard sale greeted me, broken furniture and Sue's clothes scattered about. A neighbor offered a wave, curiosity evident in their expression. I knew my neighborhood would be abuzz with gossip. It was a tight-knit community. After grabbing a quick bite downtown, I headed straight to Tad's office. Mary had a cup of coffee ready for me, just how I liked it, lots of cream and no sugar. We went way back. Bobby, whatever you've got on Tad, it's serious. I mentioned that name, and he told me to clear his schedule for the day. If this is what it takes to get him to take a break, I could use a month off. Care to spill the beans on Tammy Brown? Mary joked. You'll have to ask Tad about that. Where is he, by the way? I inquired. He said he'd be right here. He needed to reschedule with the judge for today's court session, Mary informed me. Just then, Tad walked in. Holy cow, Bobby. Tammy Brown? You must be in some hot water to bring up that name. Come on into the office, and let's talk. Mary, hold my calls for now, Tad said swiftly, leading us into his office. I recounted the events of last night and Sue's newfound lifestyle, handing Tad the envelope filled with evidence I'd gathered. He listened intently, never interrupting once. Legal gears turned in his head as I detailed the events of the previous night and mentioned Bill Evans' request for a meeting. Well, Bobby, let's address the immediate issues first. I've known you for a long time, and I can see you're hurting. Any chance of reconciling with Sue? Tad inquired. Tad, if it were Kathy, and you saw those videos and read those emails, you'd have kicked her to the curb in an instant. I want a divorce, but I also want to make them pay. I'm not going down without a fight, I confessed angrily. All right, first, we'll sue Tony and the Ace Tennis Club. Sarah's off the hook since she's just a friend fooling around with Sue. But Sue's company is another story. Secondly, we're going after the 2 clients at your house and their companies. Jeff Davis, Bill Evans, and their company are also on our list, Tad outlined. This could get ugly before it gets better, Bobby, he warned. I don't care if I have to take this to the streets. I'm going to make them pay, especially Sue, I retorted angrily. Okay, Bobby, let's go over what Bill Evans wanted, and we'll go from there, Tad suggested. We explored various options, settling on a full-on assault on Sue's company. I had a trump card with the boardroom video of Davis, Evans, and Sue, which could potentially land them in serious trouble. Tad explained that as Sue's superiors, they held sway over her job and could face serious legal consequences. It was music to my ears. Tad also hinted that once Bill realized the extent of our evidence, he might be willing to settle financially. I told Tad that anything less than $2 million wouldn't cut it. Make it $2.5 million, Tad. I've seen your legal bills before, I joked. Come over tonight at 7 p.m. and Kathy will have dinner ready for us. You could use a break from the house, Tad insisted. I called Bill Evans to schedule a meeting for 2 p.m. Just then, Mary popped her head into the office. Tad, you have a call on line 1, she informed him. Mary, I said no calls. Tad snapped, visibly irritated. Sorry to interrupt, Tad, but it's Susan on the line. I thought you might want to take it, Mary interjected. Sorry, Mary, it's been a hectic day already, and it's just getting started. Does she know Bobby's here? Tad inquired. Not that I know of, Tad, Mary replied. Let her know I'll speak with her in a moment, Tad said more calmly as Mary hurried back to the outer office. Well, I bet she's discovered her missing cell phone, computer, and all those DVD discs by now. She's probably furious I put all her belongings on the front lawn, along with our bed, I informed him. Wow, you had quite a night. Let me handle the conversation and stay out of it. As your lawyer, I need to clarify a few things right now, he hinted, picking up line 1. I listened to the one-sided conversation, able to deduce Susan's side without hearing her speak. Hi, Susan, this is Tad. Yes, I've already spoken with him. Bobby is a good man and my friend. I thought you, of all people, would have had his back instead of stabbing him in it. No excuses, Sue. I'm not in the mood, and yes, I'm representing him. He has a solid case. You know it's going to get ugly, don't you? I'll talk to him, but you've crushed a man who was always faithful and loved you dearly. I don't think he cares what you think anymore. My advice? Get yourself a good lawyer, you'll need it. Yes, Bill Evans has arranged a meeting for 2 p.m. But I don't think you should be there. Listen, Sue. If you even try to eavesdrop outside the office door, I'll advise Bobby to walk, and things will get messy. It's best you stay out of it today. I know Bobby put your stuff on the lawn, but just like you can invite strangers into your bedroom, he can toss your belongings out onto the lawn. Frankly, I'm surprised he didn't resort to violence last night. Oh, yes, he had his gun for self-defense. He thought you were being attacked, remember? That's what the police report stated. I can't say for sure, but if it were my wife, I'd probably be in jail right now. Given the circumstances, he showed remarkable restraint. As for your computer, cell phone, and anything else missing from the house this morning, you'll have to ask the co-owner. He might have left them on the lawn with your clothes, and someone might have taken them. I can't say. I handled all the escrow matters on the house, and you both have equal rights. How you choose to exercise them is up to you. For now, I'd advise you to stay put and let Bobby remain in the house until this is resolved. It's probably not safe for you to be under the same roof right now. Listen, Sue, I'm at the edge right now, so don't push it. Stay at Sarah's place, and I'll be in touch. Have your lawyer call me when you get one. Crying won't help you, Sue. Besides being Bobby's lawyer, I'm his friend. Your tears won't sway me. I can be ruthless when needed, and this seems like one of those times. I've always respected you until now. I'm sorry you'll see a side of me usually reserved for enemies. You won't like it. Okay, but keep away from him and stay in your office. He wants nothing to do with you right now. Goodbye. Tad finished, looking up at me. You probably heard most of that, he asked me sadly. Yeah, I just wish I could face her and express what I really feel. But I'm not sure I want to see her again, at least not now, I confided in my friend. Here's what I need you to do, Bobby, Tad said, with a sudden shift in mood to optimism. Hand me these videos. Tad asked me to retrieve 3 specific videos from the envelope, the one from last night, the one of Tony at the tennis club, and the one featuring Sue with Mr. Davis and Mr. Evans at her office. I handed them over, and he suggested I take Mary to lunch on him. I gave him a quizzical look, and he explained, I think it's best if I review these myself. I don't want you getting upset before our meeting with Bill Evans at 2 p.m. It wouldn't do you any good, and I don't want you to be angry going into that meeting. I knew he was right, so I thanked him and shared the good news with Mary. She joked about taking her somewhere expensive if Tad was footing the bill, and we left the building. Mary was a delightful lunch companion, and she helped me forget my troubles for a while. When we returned, I heard Tad shouting in excitement as we entered the office. He was doing a little victory dance by his desk. This tape is incredible, Bobby, you won't believe it, he exclaimed to me. My expression turned from amusement to sadness, and I think he finally understood why. Oh, Bobby, I'm sorry. I wasn't celebrating the videos. I know Sue has hurt you deeply. I was excited about something else I found, he confessed. Bobby, come here. I need you to see something, Tad called, and I obediently moved behind him to look over his shoulder. Did you watch the entire tape Tony shot at the tennis club with Sue? He asked. No, I only saw parts of it. I was trying to get through all the tapes last night without losing it or doing something I'd regret, I admitted honestly. I have quite the surprise for you. Just before Tony and Sue finish up, they attract a little crowd in the men's locker room at the tennis club. I hate to say it, but after Tony, she let the other men who were watching gangbang her. I'm telling you this not to upset you, but because of this man here. Tad pointed to the screen on his desk. The person he was pointing to was an older man with a towel around him, sporting long white hair and a walrus mustache. Tad asked if I recognized him. He let the video play, and there he was, dropping his towel to reveal a very impressive package. Without hesitation, he approached my wife and shoved it into her mouth. The next moment, she was surrounded by 5 more guys waiting for their turn with Sue. I have no clue who that jerk is, but I guess you do, Tad, I replied, trying to keep my composure. Bobby, this is for our 4 p.m. appointment at the tennis club today, Tad informed me, excitement evident in his voice as he explained his plan. Besides being my friend, Tad was one hell of a lawyer, and I was grateful to have him on my side for this. We left his office to head downtown for our 2 p.m. meeting with Bill Evans. Armed with a portable DVD player, some printed stills, and legal-looking envelopes, we made our way to Sue's building and straight to Bill's office on the top floor, with Sue's office just 1 floor below. Waiting in the lounge area until we were called into Mr. Evans' office, I felt like someone was watching me. Glancing down the hall, I caught a glimpse of a woman disappearing around a corner, likely Sue. I was just relieved I didn't have to deal with her that day. Entering Bill's office, we were greeted by expensive furnishings and walls adorned with plaques, awards, and pictures of Bill with famous people. I couldn't help but wonder if he had been intimate with Sue in this very room, a thought that intensified my dislike for Mr. Evans. Introducing Tad, I took the lead in the conversation. Hello, Mr. Evans, this is Tad Worth, a friend of mine, and he'll be joining us for this meeting, I said, initiating handshakes all around. Mr. Thomas, Bob, I thought this would be a private meeting between you and me. Bill inquired. Well, I thought I'd bring Tad along. Whatever you have to say to me, you can say to him, I replied firmly, not leaving any room for debate. Mr. Evans reluctantly accepted Tad's presence and began directing his conversation towards me, much to Tad's satisfaction. I knew what was coming, but I wanted to let Mr. Evans dig his own hole first. Bob, may I call you Bob? No problem at all. I did think it might be a good idea if Jeff Davis was also in this meeting. I don't know if that is possible, but this concerns him also, I told Mr. Evans. He paused for a moment, then pressed the intercom button. Julie, tell Jeff I need him in my office right now. Tell him to drop whatever he is doing and get here right now. Okay, Jeff should be here in just a minute. In the meantime, let me say how sorry I am for all the trouble Jeff and Sue have caused in your life. I know last night must have been terrible, but if we work on this together, we might be able to help out everyone concerned, Bill stated optimistically. Well, what do you have in mind, Mr. Evans? I asked, waiting for Jeff to arrive. I like your wife Sue very much, and... Bill began, but he was interrupted as Jeff entered the door. He froze in his tracks and seemed like he wanted to turn around and leave, but Bill ordered him to take a seat. Reluctantly, he sat down and avoided looking at me altogether. Jeff, I was just saying I liked Sue very much, almost like a daughter, he started to say when Tad cut in. Are you telling us you like incest also, Mr. Evans? Tad asked, throwing him off guard. I chuckled inwardly because I understood Tad's comment. What did you say? Do I like incest? What the hell does that mean? He asked Tad with indignation. Well, let me show you. A picture is worth 1,000 words, as they say, Tad said as he placed the DVD player on Bill's desk. These are stills of the video you will be seeing in just a minute. Tad handed them to Jeff, not Bill. Jeff's eyes widened, and he slowly passed them to Bill. The pictures clearly showed Bill and Jeff both engaging in activities with my wife, leaving no doubt as to who was in the picture or what they were doing. I even think Bill recognized his own boardroom table they used to engage in activities with Sue. Jeff, don't tell me you were so stupid as to videotape this and even distribute copies? Bill asked, almost at a loss for words. Jeff didn't have an answer at the moment and seemed tongue-tied. Well, Mr. Evans, this is how it is going to go. Oh, by the way, I am Bobby's lawyer as well as his friend. So let me tell you what we want and how we want you to handle it, Tad told the stunned audience. I relished every moment of it. First, Sue gets to keep her job, period. Bobby feels she will need a job, and she seems to get along with everyone here very well, he said to Bill with a subtle wink. Secondly, Mr. Davis here is not expected back ever, period. Sue stays, and this guy walks, Tad told Bill as he pointed to a stunned Jeff. Third, we want you to make us a monetary offer that does not insult our intelligence. We will review your first offer only and return a yes or no within 5 business days. We had planned on making it to court before 2 months are up or maybe even sooner, if we need to, Tad asserted before they could respond. Before they could say anything, Tad pushed play and flipped the screen around so Bill could see it. It showed both men engaging in inappropriate behavior with my wife in their conference room. Jeff didn't need to look since he was responsible for the video recording. Bill watched with his mouth open, clearly contemplating how to salvage his business, reputation, family life, and finances. I sensed that something would give soon. Jeff, when these gentlemen leave today, we will have a very serious discussion about your future employment here. I will talk to my lawyer and see if we can work on a figure that will satisfy you, Tad. You both realize this could be very bad for business if this gets out before my offer is on the table, Bill stated, thinking out loud. Don't worry, Mr. Evans, your secret is safe with us until we see your serious offer. I wouldn't rush to fire Mr. Davis right now, though. He may have a few extra copies of the videotape. He might use it as leverage if we don't. You and Mr. Davis can discuss that among yourselves. Oh, and by the way, you both could be looking at jail time for engaging in inappropriate behavior with an employee over whom you have direct control regarding their employment and advancement, Tad informed them as we prepared to leave. Tad reclaimed the DVD player and the stills we brought. We departed as Bill and Jeff were about to have a serious discussion. I wanted to ask Tad something, but he signaled for me to wait until we were outside. Although I didn't notice, he spotted my wife trying to eavesdrop on our conversation around the corner. The last thing I heard was Mr. Evans instructing Julie through the intercom to get Sue Thomas in here right away. I smirked, anticipating an interesting meeting. Bill would soon realize that I found the DVD of him at our house. As we exited the building, I questioned Tad about why he gave Jeff a way out by suggesting he use his own videotape against Bill. Divide and conquer, as they always say, Tad explained. It's better if they don't act as a team and each looks out for themselves. That way, if Bill gives us a laughable offer, we can start to pit them against each other. I also know Jeff and Bill have families and are church-going people. You wouldn't know it from the videotapes they make, but they don't want to rock the family boat right now, Tad wisely concluded. As we left the building, I realized it would now be the place where my wife cheated on me rather than the proud workplace where she once worked. It was a sobering thought, but Tad brought me back to reality. Okay, let's grab a beer before our next 4 p.m. meeting at the tennis club. We both could use one right now, and I need to ask you something, but I'm not sure just how to do it yet, Tad suggested as we drove across town toward the tennis club. We stopped at a nice little bar and restaurant nearby, and Tad ordered 2 beers before starting the conversation. Bobby, I believe Bill Evans will likely offer just under $1 million. I know his legal team from another firm, and they're quite capable. The main guy is also practical. I'll give him a call tomorrow and suggest that a failed low offer wouldn't bode well for his client's business or family life. I'll propose they make it around $3 million or abandon the idea altogether, Tad informed me. Next, I need to know if the offer falls through, which it might. Can I tear Susan down? I won't be gentle with her at all. I can only do what I know will win the case. As your legal representative, that'll be my unpleasant task if it comes to that. It could get ugly and very public. I'll use every tool at my disposal to win our case. You may not like all the details that could emerge about Sue, your marriage, and possibly your sex life. I'll portray her as the woman she's become. Have you considered this? Tad added at the last minute. Yeah, I've thought about it. I'm bigger than any of these people think I am. If it needs to be done, you have my approval. I prefer to pursue the money offer route before things get too intense, I hinted to Tad. All right, let's see what St. Bill offers you first. If it's terrible, I'll file all the necessary paperwork that day. I'll also use my newspaper contacts and friends at the local news stations. They'd love some footage or stills, even if they have to censor the naughty bits, as they say on Monty Python, Tad replied. Tad, you've always been there for me, and I trust your judgment. I just wish this whole mess never happened. It was more enjoyable being the clueless husband than the public victim of a cheating wife. You still have my permission to do whatever's necessary. After all, I didn't start this mess, but I'm going to end it, soon, I told him, frustration evident in my voice. All right, Bobby, no problem. Let's go over the details for our next meeting. This guy, Mr. Harry Rydell, is the owner of the Ace Tennis Club. He's the one I pointed out in the video at my office, Tad informed me. He'll likely claim that adults will be adults and there's nothing he can do for us. He might even fire Tony the tennis coach for show, only to rehire him next week. I checked, and Tony is quite popular there, especially with the ladies, if you catch my drift. Rydell might rehire him to save face with the club members. But remember, Bobby, it's mostly the men who pay the club dues, and the women go along. Keep that in mind, as it'll be important leverage with Mr. Rydell. Tad briefed me on the situation. We arrived right on time, and it was evident from the moment Mr. Rydell and Tad exchanged glances that they didn't get along. You could sense it in the tone of Rydell's first words. All right, Worth, you called the meeting, so get on with it. Let's wrap this up quickly, Mr. Rydell said to Tad, devoid of any warmth. Mr. Rydell, this is Bob Thomas, Tad said, gesturing towards me, and his wife is a member at your club. We've discovered that Tony Simba, your tennis instructor, has been involved in an affair with Mr. Thomas's wife. We'd like to know what action you plan to take, Tad concluded. He waited for Rydell to respond, but even I anticipated that Rydell would deflect responsibility and dismiss us in no uncertain terms. Listen, what 2 consenting adults do in the privacy of their own home on their own time is their business. I'm not their guardian, Worth. Stop wasting my time. Harry Rydell retorted bluntly. And as for you, Mr. Thomas, if you can't satisfy your wife in the bedroom, don't come crying to me and blaming me if she looks elsewhere. There are plenty of dissatisfied wives at the Ace Tennis Club. Some of them keep returning because of the special service my staff provides them, if you catch my drift, Harry added, winking at me. I was tempted to lash out, but Tad restrained my wrist, urging me to remain composed and follow his lead. Harry, you're assuming this took place off the club premises and without the knowledge or consent of the owners. That would be an erroneous assumption, Tad countered, placing the DVD player on Rydell's desk and hitting play. The video showed Harry dropping his towel and engaging in sexual activity with my wife. It was evident that he didn't appreciate seeing himself on tape. Tad seized the moment to speak before Rydell could gather his thoughts. Harry, with full knowledge and complicity, you and your fellow employee took advantage of a paying member of your club, Mrs. Susan Thomas, a married woman whose dues were paid by Mr. Thomas here. He's understandably discontent, Tad addressed the now silent Mr. Rydell. If this gets out, all the dues-paying men will question whether their wives are engaging in similar activities, with them footing the bill. I'll have to subpoena everyone in that locker room that day. I doubt the married ones will be pleased with you, Tad continued, his voice taking on a narrative tone. And let's not forget about the breach of privacy involved in videotaping in the locker room. Harry, once I'm through with you, your club won't retain its esteemed reputation, and I suspect your finances will take a hit as well, Tad concluded, driving his point home. So here's the deal, we need you to make a substantial offer and get back to me promptly. If you do so, it could save you a lot of embarrassment and money, Tad concluded. You could see Harry Rydell contemplating his next move. Tad, as always, you're a real pain in the ass, but I can't argue with your reasoning. I'll call you tomorrow with my offer. If I pay up, the tapes go back to me and never see the light of day. I'll fire Tony as a gesture of goodwill. Now, if that's all you legal sharks came for, get the hell out. Harry Rydell told us, as Tad picked up the DVD player with a smirk and switched it off. Oh, and tell Tito Martinez I said hi, Tad added before leaving the room. Go screw yourself, Worth, was all Harry could muster in response. Tad chuckled all the way back to the parking lot. That was quite the adventure. Now, we wait for the offers to come in, Tad told me as we headed to his house for a delicious home-cooked meal. Here's what happened by the end of the week. Bill Evans offered just under $2.7 million and agreed to keep Sue on as an employee. Jeff Davis got fired after he foolishly handed over all his tapes to Bill Evans, leaving him with no leverage. So Bill simply let him go, and poor old Jeff was left with no recourse. I went after the two jerks who were with my wife the night I caught her with Jeff. They were Jeff's two big clients. Well, they both didn't want any publicity either personally or for their companies, so they each offered me $1 million to make me go away. Harry Rydell refused to offer anything and dared us to take him to court. So we did, and he ended up losing $3 million when all was said and done. He received so many inquiries about the club's affairs that he lost half his membership and had to offer discounts to those who remained. He probably thought he could get away with it, but the judge didn't take kindly to videotaping in private locker rooms or to people sleeping with other people's spouses. I gave Sue the house and the car, as she wanted. But I didn't have to pay her a cent in alimony. I only saw her twice in court. Both times, I greeted her with horror, which made her cry. I always wondered why she cried then and not before she caused all the chaos in my life. Despite it being the worst time of my life, I ended up with more money than I'd ever had before. I was smart and invested it with Tad's guidance. It still hurt, and I carried the pain with me to this day. All the events of that dreadful year flooded back to me in an instant. I didn't even notice someone trying to speak to me until I snapped out of my memory and heard the restaurant manager asking if he could assist me. I shook my head to clear my thoughts and returned to the present. I'm sorry, I was just lost in thought about a past issue. I see the person I came to meet, so thanks again, I explained to the manager, who gave me a puzzled look, akin to how one might regard an elderly person who seemed a bit disoriented. With determination, I approached my wife's table. I think the surprise hit her first. When I was married to Susan, I was overweight, with long hair and a beard. I let myself go due to a bad knee from an old baseball injury. That's what I told myself back then, but I just got comfortable with my life and my wife. Now, I had short hair, was lean from working out every other day, and my knee was fixed thanks to the money I received from Jeff and Bill's company. My suits were expensive now, and I always tried to look good in public. I decided to initiate the conversation. You're looking great tonight, Susan. I almost forgot how nice you looked, I said, trying to provoke her. I still knew how to push her buttons, and I was doing it intentionally. My name is Susan, Bobby. Why don't you use it? She replied, clearly angry. Hey, I didn't give you your name, Susan. You know who did that. I just think it's appropriate. I told you 3 years ago you broke my heart, and I would always use that name to address you, I explained, as the guy beside her started to protest and rise from his seat. Susan pushed him back down and instructed him not to cause a scene. She began to cry, and her makeup started to run. Her date said, "Go powder your nose, Susan, and fix your pretty face. I will take care of this asshole for you." With that, she got up, looked me in the eyes, and I returned the gaze. I must have displayed all the pain I had been carrying for the last 3 years in just one look. She started crying even harder. I was surprised she still had any feelings towards me at all, or perhaps she still felt guilty. I think it was a mixture of both. "I expect you gone when I come back," she told me tearfully as she wiped her eyes and headed to the ladies' room. I noticed a very large engagement ring on her wedding finger as she wiped her eyes and left. "I take it you're Bob Thomas, Susan's ex-husband?" he asked me, disdain evident in his voice. "Yes, and you must be Susan's new fiancé," I retorted, sensing his anger rising. "I am Susan's fiancé, Peter, and I would advise you to stop calling her that if I were you," he said, trying to sound brave, but I could tell he didn't want to cause a scene. "I used that name to talk to you alone. I have 3 questions for you, and then I'll be out of your life for good," I told him, prompting a questioning look. "I was once in your position, and I didn't want someone else to suffer the same fate. I suppose Susan told you I was a terrible husband, that I abused her, neglected her, or chased other women?" I inquired, seeing that Susan had likely been painting me in a negative light. "Well, I'm not here to defend my reputation to you. Honestly, I don't think it would do any good. I just wanted to know if Sarah is still hosting her Avon parties at her house on Tuesdays and Thursdays?" I asked him. "Susan helps Sarah sell jewelry at her parties on Mondays and Wednesdays." "Shows how much you remember," he replied, snapping back at me. "Okay, is she still taking tennis lessons on Saturday?" I asked hastily. "Sue plays racquetball on Sundays." "Boy, you have a terrible memory for being married to her for so long," he replied, sounding triumphant. "Okay, last question. Have you ever looked under the bottom drawer of the dresser in your guest room?" I asked quickly again. "No." "Why should I?" he countered. "Those 3 questions I asked you are why we are not together anymore. In my office, I still have all the stuff from the divorce. Legal documents, emails from Sarah and Susan, as well as hours of videotapes. I've always kept this with me for the last 3 years, so I thought you should have it," I explained as I pulled out a very old and folded piece of paper from my wallet. This is what Susan wrote to Sarah when she asked about getting rid of me before I discovered that Susan was cheating on me. I didn't know her at all after I read the email. I guess I still don't. "It is all about you, though," I said as I handed him the paper. I knew Susan very well, though, and I knew she was a creature of habit. She always did things the same way every time. It drove me nuts sometimes. I also had a feeling that just because she got a new man, she would still be doing things like she always did. He seemed hesitant about taking the piece of paper, but I think curiosity got the best of him. He reached out and opened up the email. I had carried it for the last 3 years, and every once in a while, I would read it and try to improve my life so no woman would ever write that about me again. Of all the things I found out about, that email hurt the most. I think that's why I still carried it. This is the same email I described earlier in my story. Peter slowly read the letter and put it on the table. He pulled out a pen and wrote a note on it very fast and left the restaurant, to my surprise. No look back, no thank you, nothing. He was totally stone-faced. I reached down and looked at what he wrote on our old email. "Susan, I am going back to the house for a minute. Please stay here, and I will call you in 15 minutes. Please wait here for me. I need to look under the guest room dresser bottom drawer for some strange reason. Be right back. Peter." I knew he had seen the light, even if he didn't like the look of it. Something told me I hit too close to the mark on all three questions. The email was the final straw, and I think he needed to see for himself. I left the note in front of Susan's table setting and left. There was no way I was going to sit in that restaurant tonight with anyone. I went back to the foyer and called my client. They said they were running late anyway and wouldn't mind rescheduling. Just before I left, I took one last look back at the table. Susan had returned to the table and was looking around for Peter. She sat down, looked at her old email, and at Peter's note written below. Her face turned white as a ghost as she recognized her old email and what Peter had written her. The last time I saw my wife, she was crying so hard she had the whole restaurant looking at her. I did feel sorry for her, but also didn't care anymore. That was the last time I ever saw her again. I still wonder if Peter found anything under the dresser drawer. Susan's crying told me he might. The end. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.